All right, last thing I want to talk about, veterans that you believe need to have a big training camp. There are a list of them. There are a number of guys. We talked about the secondary alone. There's like 5 or 6 defensive backs that have an opportunity to make this roster, but it's uncertain about which ones are going to. You look at the vets on this team. Which ones do you believe need to have a big camp in order to make the 53-man roster, or play like a significant role on this team?
That second qualifier there, because I think Kendrick Green is a guy that I'm watching, honestly.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I mean, yeah, like, look, I we've talked about it a little bit. How long he's destined to stay in Pittsburgh, I think, is a
Mm-hmm.
completely open question. I think if he can prove to be at least solid, capable as a backup, that completely changes the calculus. Because I also think, there's kind of two sides to this. There's the side of Kendrick Green plays well enough that he's a valuable backup, and we need to hang on to him. And then I think the
Mm-hmm.
other side is he's playing well and he's a valuable backup. We got to trade him so we can, sell high on Kendrick Green and get something back from him. So that's someone I'm watching. You know, there's kind of like layers to it. There's, okay, he's not good enough to play for. We're just kind of cut our losses on it. There's good enough to build some trade value for him, keep him around. Like, he, to a point where he's good enough that he's valuable enough to keep around. So that's one I'm watching. I I know you're high on Connor Hayward this year, but I think that's another guy that I'm watching too. Only second year, so technically a
Mm-hmm.
veteran, but still very young. Um, it's just a crowded tight ends room. And yeah, maybe he fits into that fullback role that some people like him in. The kind of Swiss Army knife can do a lot of different things, but I'm still not very bullish on that actually happening, and that and him actually being used in that role. So I think it's kind of a big summer for Connor Hayward to prove what he can do and prove that there is a role for him in this offense and there is somewhere for him to fit in. It seems like an uphill battle, especially after they've drafted Darnell Washington, but you've got 3 guys ahead of him that are pretty good. At the very
Yeah.
least, you got Zach. Like, at the very tail end of it, it's Zach Gentry, who is incredibly reliable and solid. If he's not extraordinary, but he
Yeah,
will
it
do
gets the
everything
job done.
right. So I just think it's an uphill battle for Connor Hayward, and I think he's one of those guys that it would be cool to see him make the roster. I think that would be. I think he's a good football player, and there's a role for him somewhere in the NFL. But I don't know. I'm not sure if it's with the Steelers right now.
So the Kendrick Green thing shocked me a little bit. Didn't see that one coming, but I agree with you. Like, I think he makes the roster? No. Do I think he's got like any real opportunity to make the roster? I think that's very slim. Do I think he could build some trade value and possibly be, a swap for a 5th-round pick or a 6th-round pick by the end of camp? Yeah, maybe, or maybe he's a practice squad guy that the Steelers feel very confident in to work his way back into the roster. Like, you know what I mean? Maybe he's a guy that they do want around. I like that. And I think Kendrick Green's very good at
Yep.
football or at playing offensive line in the NFL? No, not necessarily, but you never know. You never know. Year three is a big year for most offensive linemen. So I will proceed with caution. I like that one. Connor Hayward's a good one as well, especially because the Swiss Army knife is good on paper. It's not always good in a real role. And the
Yep.
Steelers rarely utilize a fullback, rarely. And just like you said, they have a crowded tight end room. I think where Connor Hayward fits in the most is what Pat Fryermuth is already doing. And it's a question of like, you're not going to take Pat Fryermuth off the field for Connor Hayward. That's
Right.
just, it doesn't make any sense. You could use him in a number of ways, but how much usage is he actually going to see is a big question, I think. And at the same time, like, again, like, can you prove to everybody that you deserve a spot on this team more than a Zach Gentry? You know what I mean? Can you be more reliable than a Zach Gentry? I think what gives him the upper hand is he's a very good special teamer. But again, like, you got to prove that at training camp. You got to hold strong and you got to be able to utilize yourself in the offense. So I like both of those a lot. My big veterans to watch. Keanu Neal is my first one. No idea what his role is going to be. Is he going to play safety? Is he going to play inside linebacker? How much of the field is he actually going to see? I think that Keanu Neal is a guy that could be like such a key piece to the Steelers defense and utilized in so many good ways. But I also think it's been a couple of years since Keanu Neal has been a dynamic piece to any defense. and has held like a starter status, and you don't really know what's going to happen there. At the same time, like I think DeMonte KZ was kind of in that role when he ended up in Pittsburgh and turned into a pretty good, valuable piece. But I think Keanu Neal is a scary looking dude. He could hit you as hard as any inside linebacker. He's got experience at both positions, and he's super athletic. So I think if you could utilize him well, which what gives me hope is Terrell Austin is a defensive backs coach by heart. So this guy knows how to utilize these guys. And Minka Fitzpatrick has talked time and time again about how smart he is and how well he sees the defense from that safety role. So I think that utilizing Keanu Neal could be kind of easy for him, and something that is very impressive and huge for the Pittsburgh Steelers. My second one is Larry Ogunjobi. There are talks about Aaron Donald. There are talks about I just went on the whole thing of, the group. What am I looking for? I'm looking for, I'm looking for the defensive line. Larry O is the make or break guy for that defensive line. I truly, truly believe that. I don't know what DeMarvin Leal is going to be in year 2. I have zero expectations for him, like literally zero expectations, because I have no idea where he plays. I have no idea how much stronger he got. I just don't know what to expect from DeMarvin Leal. Larry O's got a whole offseason. If he is a monster, like when Larry O is on, he is as good as it gets for a defensive end in the NFL. When he's off, he's as mediocre as it gets for a defensive end in the NFL. And I think that a whole training camp could be huge. I think that him and Cam could be huge. I just think that he is the piece that makes this defense elite or not elite. And just like when Stephon Tuitt was around, the defensive line was elite. And Larry O could be another Stephon Tuitt like player. He could have that same impact. I do have a third one for you. Allen Robinson. That is a guy for me that I am not totally convinced that Calvin Austin is not going to be a superstar right out of the gate. I think that Calvin Austin's a stud. I might be Calvin Austin's biggest supporter. Like of the media, I think that I might be, just because I think that dude has everything that you need to be a successful NFL player today. And I think he plays both inside and outside so well. But I think Allen Robinson is looking for a bounce back year. He's had phenomenal years in the past. I don't think he's a 1,000-yard receiver, but I think that if you could be a 700-yard receiver with 5 to 7 touchdowns, that is a huge season. But that's where I think he shines. Like I think Allen Robinson could be a guy that he's your big body. He is your unstoppable force in the red zone. The Steelers have not had that in a while. Maybe that's their guy, and I think that you get a glimpse of that in training camp, especially against guys like Patrick Peterson, Joey Porter Jr., Levi Wallace, Corey, like these big Keanu Neal, like these big guys that he's going to have to play every day in training camp.
Yeah. I love the Keanu Neal. I'm all in on Keanu Neal, quite honestly. Like just personally, I'm really high on him. I think he's going to be really, really valuable, but like you said, he's got to be used right.
Yes.
Larry O is an interesting one. I like that, to kind of take that defensive line from really good to elite. Like he could be a key piece there. I don't think I've been very high on Larry O in the past, but like you said, if things click for him, he's as good as it gets. And especially like pairing him alongside, if he can play alongside Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, and TJ Watt, like that's going to leave a lot of single coverage for him, and it's going to, make life a lot easier on him, and it's going to set up a really favorable situation for him. So that's a good one to look forward to. And Allen Robinson, look, if he's your third receiver catching 700 yards and 5 touchdowns, the Steelers are in a fantastic spot. And Kenny Pickett has absolutely taken that leap that I think we might expect him to. He could be a game changer too. You got to hope that Allen Robinson stays healthy, right? Like that's the only concern. Like I feel like if he's on the field, he's going to be really good for them, but it's the staying on the field that you worry about.
Yeah, you got to be on the field. You got to be on the same page as Kenny Pickett. You got to be able to make plays quick. Like, yeah, I think that it's big, but I think that those, like, think about this. Like, I keep comparing it to a year ago, and I get that the Steelers last year, the expectations were like, this is going to be a bad team. A year, like we just went through Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Neal, Connor Hayward, some people have very high expectations for Connor Hayward, and Allen Robinson as like the guys that could, like the vets who need a big training camp. Like last year it was like, Zach Gentry's got to have a huge day. Otherwise,
Right.
this offense isn't going to be good. Like it's where the Steelers have come in a whole year is just wild. And the additions and the upgrades that they've made have been so significant that it's exciting. And